Happy Labor Day, everybody. On the sports clock here, a return guest, my first return guest coming on from Hummelstown, Pennsylvania. He's coached at University of Great Falls, USC Aiken, Georgia Tech, Georgia Southern, George Mason, where I know him from. I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit. VMI, Rice, Georgia State, SMU, and is now going back into, I guess, technically first season, second time around at Rice. From Hummelstown, Pennsylvania, Coach Chris Kreider. Coach, thanks for being on. Thanks for taking time out of your Labor Day to do this.
For sure. Great to see you, Tyler.
Great to see you. So you were at SMU and now back at Rice for a second stint. And it only took there was a coaching change made at SMU, part of college basketball. That's not fun, but within a week, it sounds like you all landed on your feet pretty quickly.
Yeah, thinking back, whirlwind for sure. I don't know how long it was. I think there was like a day we had to marinate on all that happened. And then Coach was sitting down with the administration at Rice, and then he was, calling us and texting us, hey, who's in type deal. And then it was off and running.
Yeah, and it's, it's one of those deals in college basketball. As you know, Coach and I have been very, very close for about, gosh, I can't believe it's been 11, 12 years now since I first started. I was a sophomore or junior at Missouri State and flying to D.C. to go work camps at George Mason, and got to know you and Coach Paul Hewitt, and Eric Skeeters is back now, and just a great group of guys. And I saw when I was at Loyola, but glad you all landed on your feet, and things look promising. I saw the schedule. A lot of fun places you're going. I know it's a business trip, but I was like Bahamas and, playing in the conference as a couple schools in Florida. And so it's, going to be an exciting season, it sounds like.
Yeah. We walked into several of those games that are on our non-conference schedule. We're contracted already. As you know, that's kind of, scheduling gets mapped out sometimes, a year in advance or 6 to 8 months in advance. So we walked into some of those. FIU, the game you mentioned, we definitely, we scheduled that one. We're looking forward to that challenge early on. They play a pressing style that'll be good for us because our second game is against Florida State here in Houston in the Toyota Center. And they're a little different, but, they switch a lot, but they're picking you up full court. And so those first two games, we're going to have to take care of the ball, and it'll be a challenge on our guards. And then the Bahamas, it'll be a 3-game MTE, most likely going to be a 6-team deal now. I think that'll come out officially in their release this week. So we're excited about our schedule. It'll be a good challenge leading into the American.
For people who don't follow college basketball, and a lot of my listeners just like to hear kind of the behind the scenes. I worked in it for 6-7 years, so I know, but like the travel is, I think about, and I think from a baseball perspective where you get taken care of, it seems like in college, and then you go play like in the minor leagues and you're busting everywhere. So is it the same there at Rice? Are you guys going to be charter flying to these places? Or I'm sure you'll commercial sometimes, but are you busting everywhere? What's kind of the travel logistics look like?
Yeah, in our non-conference schedule, we don't travel a lot. Previous staff did a really good job, with some guarantee games to get some home games. So we'll be at home a lot. But, yeah, the travel comes down to, you mentioned all the places I've been. The travel's different at every one of those places. Here at Rice, we'll try to take advantage of two things. One being in Houston, where you have 2 airports. So it might be a potential commercial on the way out, and then a charter on the return when possible, especially when the next day is an academic day. Here at Rice, a top 20 academic school, you don't want to miss a day of classes and put your guys behind that way. So we'll use charter flights for those reasons. And when we need to charter both ways, we will too.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of talking a little bit too on the season. So you mentioned a little bit about the non-conference. What's the conference looking like? So I know SMU changed conference, but you're staying in the same conference, the AAC, correct?
Yep. So that'll, be good for our staff. Coach Lanier brought over most of us from SMU. So from a scouting perspective and a comfortability with the league, it's kind of the same. There are a couple new coaches. So just like, there always is. But as far as the league goes, yeah, we're very familiar as a staff with the conference.
And I remember, speaking of staff, so I remember when I was in it was 3 assistants. Now I believe you can have 5 assistants, and they just changed the rule. I believe 2 of the 5 could not recruit, but that rule just changed, I believe, where all 5 can recruit now. How has that changed kind of your duties? I know you're the associate head coach, so maybe it hasn't changed at all, but
Yeah, it's a staff by staff. We try to ask around how different people are doing things. Because it is college basketball, so many things are changing. And so the way you can use those fourth and fifth assistants is basically up to the head coach. If you want to get some younger guys out on the road recruiting and get them some experience, you can. There's certain windows of how you can flip-flop assistants. But yeah, my role is to do whatever coach asks me to do. I try to make his job easier and still recruiting. And with the portal being so important now, I think there's a lot of almost, you see a lot of guys coming from the NBA to provide, I think some insight on how, you're evaluating film, college film on synergy, and then it's coming down, with NIL and all that. It's almost like a pro mentality, salary cap management type mentality. So it is changing, and I think we're all just trying to adjust on the fly.
yeah, and that was the one thing I want to talk about too that's changed since I've been in it was the portal and the NIL. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that and how, has that transition been easy, or is it more difficult at a school like a school in the AAC, we'll say?
Yeah, you can throw the two things you mentioned, the portal, NIL, along with this, house case that's coming down, the revenue sharing, and then also throw in, the possibility of going to a roster limit next year. That's what a lot of people are talking about, going to 15 roster limits. You can give up to 15. Potentially, this is how it most likely will go down. You can give up to 15 scholarships, but it's up to the school to determine if they want to do that or keep it at 13 or 14. So when you put all that together, there's a lot of unknowns. You're kind of navigating it. The portal is different for sure. You figure out, do you want to, be heavy portal? Do you want to take high school guys and develop them? Your NIL pool will dictate maybe how you play in that field. But here at Rice, we plan on using both high school and portal. We would love to take young guys and develop them. I mentioned Rice being a top 20 academic school, so you try to get the guys coming out of high school that value academics, but then also want to play big time American Conference basketball.
Yeah, and I was talking to a former GM of a Major League Baseball. Well, I'll go ahead and say it was Ed Lynch. Him and I do a weekly show. And we were just talking about how it's changed. And this is from a baseball perspective, but I still feel it kind of fits in with, it used to be, at least for baseball, you would want to go JUCO to get drafted. But now it feels like that's mindset's kind of changed, at least on the baseball side, where it's go to a 4-year and then maybe drop down to D2 or go pro after that. What's, from a basketball perspective, has that mindset changed in terms of going JUCO first and then going to D1? Or
yeah, that's I think what a lot of people are looking at is, where can I play? I think with the internet and every game's on TV, there's no hiding. These pro scouts can now go to, the EYBL, and they can go, watch these different Dame Lillard camp. Like, they're seeing these guys in high school, so they know who you are. But if you're not playing, it's kind of hard to not only develop, but then just also put numbers on the board and percentages in the book for them to see, So I think a lot of guys, you have some that are just going for the short, or not, just the real money that's available now. But then you also have guys that might sacrifice some money to go play, just knowing that they want to play and develop, and they want the exposure while playing on the court, not sitting there watching other guys go at it.
Yeah, and it's definitely changed since I've been in it. And all I'll say is I'm not in it anymore, but I obviously I've followed your career. You and I've gotten to know each other very well. And I don't know. I was like, this sounds like it's a lot to take on, but I'm sure you adjust to, and I'm sure it's one of those where, you kind of learn and you just roll with the punches.
Yeah. You have to stop maybe now more than ever and just remember, why we got into coaching and what coaching really is about. You still have an opportunity to mentor these guys and help these guys. And, you know, uh, as adults, maybe, or just out of college is when you first had to deal with, making decisions based on potential earnings or salaries and what are you going to do with your money? Well, now these guys are getting an opportunity to practice financial literacy earlier, and you can help them make decisions. Who are they or who are they not, and what do they want to be about? Do they want to, why are they making the decisions that they're making? So I think we as coaches now in college, we just have to maybe shift a little bit and figure out how can we best help our guys. But it just looks different than 10 years ago or 20 years ago. But we still have the opportunity to do the same thing, and that's help our guys become the best versions of themselves.
Yeah, and that's the part about coaching I miss the most is, being able to help someone and be a resource for players, even down the road. I mean, look at you and I, and last two things here. I do want to reminisce a little bit about our time at Mason, but, or I guess your time at Mason when I'd come work camps. But, you and I have stayed in touch, and I never worked with you, but you've kind of taken me under your wing, which I really appreciate. Like anytime I, need advice or whatever in terms of like a career move, whatever, you've always been, always been one ring away. So I appreciate that. And, to me, that's what coaching's all about, yeah, fun times there at Mason, the field house. And I actually went to a game earlier this year. I had never been to a game at George Mason, believe it or not.
Really?
But, I'd come to our camps. Yeah. And the green machine and, they, I don't want to talk bad because I like Tony's skin a lot and all that. And it was his first year. So but they weren't very good this year, but they still packed that place. And the fans, I remember mentioning, I went to a restaurant across the street and mentioned your name. And they're like, oh yeah, we know him. They remember their people there. And the Green Machine Band, I was just like, the place was packed. I was like, wow, I bet this was a heck of a place to coach and program to be a part of. I'm kind of jealous, to be honest.
Yeah, George Mason's a special place. The people are great. Tony Skin is the best. He's going to get it going, and he's such a great dude. Got to know him well, and the athletic director there, Marvin Lewis, has great vision for the program. He's going to do great things there. So the people there now are probably really excited about the next step that they can take as a university. They're kind of like us. They're in a similar type league in a really awesome part of the country, big city. Academics are important there. So that was the fun part about Mason, just that you're in a basketball hotbed, kind of like we are here in Texas. You have access to a lot of really good players, but you're in a really good conference. So you got to, it's all about recruiting. All these different jobs that I've been at, it's really come down to the players that you've been able to attract in recruiting, and then, the ability to develop and put it all together on the court.
Yeah, and I still, you talked about the players you recruited. I still, I'm on Facebook with like Marco and Patrick Holloway, and I still keep up with those. And like I said, I didn't know them, I wasn't around them every day, but they always made me feel welcome. You all always made me feel welcome and like a part of your family. And obviously having that connection with Nyla and who was the women's basketball coach there, and they've really, the women's basketball programs come a long way as well. And it's great things happening there. Great things happening at Rice as well. Coach, thank you for your time. And last thing here, I hope you're not offended by the Knicks flag. Like usually I keep a neutral background, but I'm in the process of moving, so this is kind of the best I could do. But who did you root for growing up, NBA wise? I don't think I've ever asked you that.
Yeah, so grew up all over the country and a little bit over the world. Grew up in Colombia, South America for 5 years from ages 8 to 13. So never was in one area long enough to really have a team. So it is kind of I'm not dodging the question, but I don't really have an NBA team that I follow. What I find myself doing is now watching teams, whether it's, Trey Murphy with the Pelicans, or just, talking about a couple guys here from Rice, Max Fiedler, who had a chance to recruit him when I was here the first time. He just was picked up by the Philadelphia 76ers. And Quincy Oliveri, same recruiting class here at Rice, was signed by the Los Angeles Lakers. So you got two Rice guys, both got their degrees from Rice, played in the summer league with those respective teams, and now they were basically, they're signed. They might bounce back and forth to the G League here and there. But proud of those guys. Those are the kind of players we're trying to attract here. Guys that, Max was a 4.0 student engineering guy that chose Rice because of the academics, and Quincy, same thing. It was Cornell or Rice, and he chose Rice. So back to your question, I'll be watching the Sixers, Pelicans, Lakers, and then I'll throw one more. Drew Peterson, Rice guy, started his career at Rice. He's with the Boston Celtics. So I just try to follow those teams. And then, to be honest, you get so busy in college basketball that, you watch the NBA when it comes to the playoffs, other than just, studying different potential offensive concepts or things like that you see throughout the year here and there. But you're so locked in on your team and your conference that in college it's kind of hard to really, follow it like that.
Yeah, and I can attest to that, having been worked in it. I didn't really follow I was a Bulls fan growing up, Knicks fan now, and I can attest to what you're just saying, that you're so focused that you don't follow it. But kind of from an outsider's perspective now, not being in coaching, it is kind of cool. And I have to tell you, and I don't know if you've been, but if you're ever in New York City, we have to go to a game at Madison Square Garden. There's nothing I can't describe, Coach, what going to Madison Square Garden's like. You ever been there?
I've never been to Madison Square Garden.
It's
like I
said. Go ahead.
Yeah, the Palestra and Madison Square Garden. Those are the two, when it comes to basketball facilities, for sure.
Yeah, it's nothing quite like it. Well, Coach, best of luck this season. As always, I'll be following you. I'll be sending you texts after every win, which there'll be a lot of them this year. And thank you for being on, especially on Labor Day. Always great to catch up with you, and go Rice. And again, look forward to hopefully having you on again at some point after the season, or maybe midway through.
For sure. Thanks again, Tyler.
Thank you, Coach. Coach Chris Kreider.